One of the things that our customers struggle with the most is putting in a new needle. So on your long arm, we suggest a new needle they say every quilt. There's so many stitches per needle, but just kind of keep in mind, if you're doing a little baby quilt, you might be able to get a couple of small baby quilts out of one needle, but you definitely want to change your needle frequently, especially after you do a large king size quilt. Now, before we start talking about the needle itself, let's talk about what kind of needle you need for your Handi Quilter machine. If you have a Handi Quilter, there are certain things that you need to be looking for when you purchase a needle. The first thing that I suggest is always buy your Handi Quilter branded needles. You don't have to remember half of this stuff, okay? But if for some reason you're in a pinch and the local store you need needles don't have Handi Quilter, make sure you look for a couple of things. So first of all, your needle packages are going to have what we call a system number on them, and that is this little guy right here. It says 134 MR. So what that means is the system number is 134. That's what you need for a Handi Quilter machine. So it doesn't matter if you have a Simply 16 stationary machine or the Infinity. You're going to be looking for that system number of 134. So as long as you purchase Handi Quilter branded needles, you don't have to worry about that because that's what's in these packages. So we have a wide variety of Handi Quilter accessories here in our shop. You can purchase online. We'll be glad to ship them to you. And anyone that is in your local area that might have Handi Quilter, that's where we suggest you go. Always buy Handi Quilter branded product. Past that, there's 3 different styles of needles. You have your standard, which is used in any of the Handi Quilter machines except for the Infinity. The high speed is definitely the only machine that requires high speed is the Infinity. But your Amara machine, your Amara 20, Amara 24, also known as the Forte, you can use high speed needles in. All the other machines are just going to require standard, okay? And the difference is how big the scarf is scooped out in the back, and we'll talk about that. Also, you have a ballpoint needle. So if you're working on a t-shirt quilt, you're working on something that's giving you some tension issues, I always suggest having some ballpoint needles on hand just because you never know when you might need one. So ballpoint is not as sharp point of a needle, and that's going to help you when you're working with, sometimes we use it on digitally printed fabrics, sometimes we use it on t-shirt quilts, so definitely have some ballpoint on hand. Past that, you're going to want to know what size of needle you need. Now that depends on what size thread you're going to use. And in your Handi Quilter machines, there's a really cool feature. Under the information tab on your machine screen, you can hit this little needle, and that's going to give you a little cheat sheet of what size needle do I need to go with the size of thread that I'm using. So today we're going to use Omni, which is a 40 weight polyester, and so the 40 weight needs either a size 16 needle or a size 18 needle. So we start with a 16, and then if it gives us any issues, then we move up to an 18. So that's a really neat place to find that little cheat sheet, and you don't have to go hunt a piece of paper that you've, with your machine, you get a printed out piece of paper. In some of your trainings you've been into, you may have that little cheat sheet we give you, but that is a really quick and easy way to find that information. So to change our needle, or before we do that, let's talk about the parts of the needle. So the needle I'm showing you here, my big needle, this is actually a needle that would be used in a domestic sewing machine because it has a flat back. You see that? So when you have a flat back, that's going to go in a domestic machine. Some other brands use needles with flat backs, but Handi Quilter, the shaft on that Handi Quilter needle is going to be fully round. There is no flat back. It's fully round.
Do like this with your hand.
Okay. So it is a totally round shaft. Now I'm going to show you when you are putting your needle in some important things you need to know. So other than the shaft up here, that's what the shaft is, you have a groove that goes down the front of your needle. Now I'm using this needle because it's going to be a lot easier to see that on video than it is me showing you a tiny little needle that big. So this groove down the front gets bigger as the size of the needle gets bigger because that's what accommodates your thread. Then your eye of your needle, your thread also is going to go through the eye of the needle. So a bigger size needle is going to have a little bit bigger of an eye. The tip of your needle, that's where we're talking about whether it's a standard or high speed, is going to be a sharp point. If you have a ball point, it's going to be rounder down here on this very tip of the needle, the point of the needle. Now the back of the needle is going to have what we call the scarf. This is where your hook is going to go around and it's going to connect with your needle right here in this little indentation. That's called the scarf, and that's where it's going to grab up your bobbin thread and form your stitch. So when you have a standard needle, the scarf is like that. Your high-speed needles have a little bit bigger scarf, so it has a little bit of a extra room in here because that machine is moving so fast that it needs that little bit of extra space. So like I said, the standard needle is what we can use in our Amaras, Amara 24, Simply 16, our Moxie, our Sweet 16, any of those models that are not the Infinity. The Infinity, you definitely need a high-speed needle. Now, on our Amaras, because we run them pretty fast here in the shop, we use high-speed needles in them all the time, but we don't have to. Does that make sense? So we are going to be putting in our new needle today. I'm going to pull one out of the package and get it ready to install on my machine. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to take out my old needle. And to do that, you're just going to use your little screwdriver. If you didn't get one of these really nice black handled screwdrivers with your machine, we do have them for sale. They're like $12, something like that. They're really nice to have. Now we have a little old medication bottle that we put our used needles in, just because when we get ready to throw these away, we don't want them just randomly thrown in the trash can. So that's kind of our sharps container. And we are ready to install our new needle. So the most important thing is your groove we talked about that your thread travels in is going to be facing the front. So I'm going to get my needle started in here. There is a tiny little hole in the side of your needle bar. You don't have to zoom in here, Marley, but I'm just going to show them. I'm putting my screwdriver inside that hole. Your needle, you can see in that hole, and the end of your needle should be all the way up into your machine, and then your groove should be facing the front. Now, if your eyes are as bad as mine, you can't really see that groove really easy. So we have a handy little tool here we call the needle alignment magnet. This is a little magnet. It's the best $5 you'll ever spend. And this magnet allows you to see if your needle's straight. So we're just going to take it and we are going to place the magnet on that groove side of the needle. Now you can see here my groove needs to be straight out in front. It is not. It's kind of off to the side. So I'm just going to loosen my screw and straighten it up a little bit to where that magnet is pointing straight out. This magnet does not, it will stick to other parts of the needle, but it really likes that flat surface of that groove side of the needle. So that's how you know your needle is straight, using your needle alignment magnet, and you are good to go. So as we have got our needle changed, I highly suggest that you do this every time to make sure that your needle is in properly. If y'all have any questions, be sure to watch our other videos for more tips and tricks with your Handi Quilter long arms. And we here at Two Chicks Quilting can't wait to see you again.